Hi, before we begin, I'd like to point out that I'm not a historian. I taught history at an international school. I love history. I devour history. I'm going to put all my sources in the description below. But bottom line is, if I do make a mistake, please point them out. Put them in the commentary. I'll be happy to be told I've made a mistake. Thank you.
So it's impossible to discuss the coup, and we'll come to that word in a minute, and the events of 65 without acknowledging that it's more than possible the CIA were involved. And it's also possible that Suharto himself had knowledge of the September movement. So these 2 points should be kept in mind. Okay, going back to the word coup. The word coup means an aggressive takeover, usually by military, against a presidency or government. So this wasn't a coup as such, because of course the September movement were actually guarding Sukarno from would-be conspirators. Does it sound a little difficult to follow? I hope not, and I'll hopefully explain. So, in 64, this is very important, in 64, the Chief of Staff at the time, General Ahmadiyani, was given constitutional powers to declare martial law without having President Sukarno's permission. This would lead to Suharto's gain of power. Now, although this is a look at the times of Suharto, it's disingenuous not to look at this fateful 2 days, September 30th, 1st of October, which would change the destiny of both Suharto and Indonesia. So what we do know is that on October the 1st, 1965, truckloads of troops set out to capture 7 of the top generals in Indonesia. These was under the influence of Lieutenant Colonel Unting. 7 of the top generals were located, but only 6 were held. 3 resisted arrest, they were shot. 3 were taken to Halim and tortured before being murdered. Their bodies, all 6 plus an extra, a captain who some people even think was mistaken for the 7th general, were thrown down the well. And this is a very famous well near Halim that people visit as a kind of pilgrimage. So, Unting and his troops also took installations, including Radio Republic Indonesia. Of course, radio in those days was the way of contacting most Indonesians. Very few had televisions at the time. And he proclaimed that he was protecting Sukarno, President Sukarno, and his movement, called the 30th of September movement, would secure Sukarno and not enable the generals to take a coup against him. Now, during this time, prior to this time, a sleeping Suharto, he's in bed, he's woken by a neighbor saying, hey, things are going on. He is very quick and he is very decisive. And throughout the day, his troops begin, usually without bloodshed, to take back the installations that Untung and his troops had got. If we're very frank, the plotters were not really well supervised. In fact, some of the troops were starving almost because they hadn't got food. So it was a poor plot. Neither here nor there. Suharto, by 9 p.m, the coup's finished, or what we call a coup. He goes on to Radio Republic Indonesia and proclaims that he's taking over as military leader. He has Nasution, who was his higher in command, next to him. He also blames the PKI, and this is very crucial, he blames the PKI for this attempt and murder, of course, of the 6 generals. Now, Sukarno sends a message to state, hey, you know, you're going to have to step down. And Suharto, remember what I said at the beginning? Suharto has this power. And he says, no, I'm not stepping down. He also tells Sukarno to relocate. Sukarno had gone from the presidential palace to Halim. And he says, no, you're going to have to go to Bogor. Now, what would follow would be an orgy of violence for the next 3 months. With Indonesia, possibly between 500, even 1 million people were massacred. And not just in Java, in Sumatra. Here in Bali, there was tremendous bloodshed. It was a bloodbath. The killing subsided early 66. And a newly promoted Lieutenant General, Suharto, was given extraordinary powers in 66 by a very much under threat President Sukarno. On the 21st of March 1968, Suharto's road to the presidency ended. He was officially elected President Suharto, the 2nd president of the Republic of Indonesia. The Western world cheered. Russia, China bemoaned the mass killings and criticized them. However, Indonesia's domino hadn't fallen. But what next for Indonesia? Well, Suharto had inherited a very weak economy, poor infrastructure, and a traumatized people. Next week, we'll be looking at his early years in power and the rise of the new order. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week.